Hello, I'm Tim Wall, Senior Reporter for Pet Food Industry. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro, How Plasma Improves Pet Nutrition and Product Quality. Ask the Pet Food Pro connects experts with industry professionals and offers the opportunity to pose questions directly. Ask the Pet Food Pro is brought to you by Pet Food Forum and Pet Food Industry's journalists and editors. Drawing on our combined decades of experience covering the dog, cat, and other pet food markets, you can find our reporting and analysis at petfoodindustry.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter and monthly magazine. Today's discussion focuses on the many uses of plasma, and pet food ingredient producer APC sponsors this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro. And welcome to our expert guest, Roger Gerlach, Director of Global Pet Food Sales at APC. Welcome, Roger, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tim. It's good to be here.
Before we start the discussion, I do have a few little announcements. Audience members, you've all been muted to ensure that everyone can hear and focus on the discussion. I've included many of the questions you all sent in before into our script, but if you do have a question during the discussion, please submit that over into the chat box. And also please note that this chat is being recorded, so you can access that recording starting in about a week at petfoodforumevents.com. There should be a tab up at the top. You'll probably also get an email about it. To start, let's cover a question from the audience that we received before the show, Roger. Could you explain what exactly is plasma, especially like when compared to something like dried blood meal or like medical plasma like you donate?
Sure. So plasma and blood meal differ in that plasma is a fraction of whole blood, where blood meal is typically made from, it is dried whole blood. So what we do is we collect the whole blood and then we separate the fractions, separate it into the red blood cells, and then we separate it into the plasma fraction. Plasma retains all the biological and health value of the blood. It's very rich in amino acids. It's high in protein. Red blood cells, it's typically just a higher protein additive, does not retain the amino acids and all the health and biological benefits that plasma does. In the pet food world, red blood cells is sometimes used for color because we can darken kibble and wet food up, change the color a little bit with the use of red blood cells. It's a hot topic right now with the FDA jumping on to get rid of a lot of these artificial colors in not only human foods, but pet foods. The red dye is a big one on the list right now. We can actually change the color with red blood cells. Whole blood and red blood cells, they typically tend to be higher in iron, which you need to be a little more careful with. And then when you mentioned the medical plasma, yes, medical plasma is big on the human side. We actually have a sister company under our ownership group that focuses on the use of medical plasma. So it's a common used ingredient in humans, from everything from, we made part of plasma replacement therapy for joint health, that's referred to as PRT sometimes. It's also used in prescription meals for Crohn's patients because of the gut health benefits and other gastrointestinal issues on the human side. And we like that as well, because as we know, most of the trends in the pet world come from the human world these days and tend to come very quickly. So it's very good that the consumers out there are aware of plasma and some of the uses and different positive uses on the human side of the business. And that translates well to their pet.
Gotcha. So just in that answer, you mentioned quite a few different uses for plasma. And when I was preparing for the show, I learned that plasma has a really wide range of uses, much more than I anticipated.
Sure.
So let's try and break that down a little bit. And first off, let's talk about what I guess it seemed to me like the most kind of straightforward or obvious use of plasma, which is as a protein source. So how can that plasma, spray-dried plasma, contribute to digestible or highly bioavailable proteins for pet food formulations?
So pet plasma is, you're right, it is a great protein source. It comes in anywhere from 71 to 78% protein, depending on which of our products that you would use. We at APC, we do have different products other than just there's no one standard plasma, if you will, but up to, like I said, a 78% protein. So it's a highly digestible protein source, but it's much more than just the protein. As I mentioned a minute ago, plasma brings a lot of different amino acid profiles, health benefits. There's gut health benefits. It's very digestible. It helps improve digestibility of diets. It's extremely palatable for dogs and especially cats. Cats absolutely love it. So there's a lot of different uses. You could use it, as you said, just the protein source. Yes, absolutely. Can boost protein. palatability, help with palatability. Then we can get into health benefits, gut health benefits, and joint health, mobility, and that sort of thing. There's a lot behind plasma than just the protein.
So you mentioned gut health there. Let's delve into
Sure.
that a little bit more.
Yeah.
How can plasma support gut health or immune function in dogs and cats, particularly in the ones that might be young, puppies, or sensitive, maybe senior animals?
So we've got a lot of research at APC. Our company is built on real R&D, and we have over 600 peer-reviewed papers and journal articles on the use of plasma and the use of plasma in gut health in several different species, swine, livestock species, and over and over it translates from species to species. We've just finished up, or in the process of finishing up, a research project with the University of Illinois behind microbiome and gut health in dogs with plasma. Some nice results we found there. Again, we saw improved digestibility, saw improved fecal scores, improved utilization of short chain fatty acids, and improved serum metabolites, just to name a few. So like I said, that particular project's just finishing up, and we're waiting on publication, so I don't want to let too much out of the bag on that. But we do have a publication coming from that project very soon. And really, it's not necessarily isolated to just puppies or just this stage. There's benefits that we see in all life cycles and life stages of the animals. Puppies with gut health is very important. I mentioned we were actually mobility a minute ago. We're in a mobility study right now as well. And that translates to senior dogs quite well. The consumer tends to notice that when the dog gets older, a little bit more trouble getting around, moving, jumping down the stairs, cat jumping on the cat tree, etc. So we're seeing some nice results with mobility as well. Again, another project that's winding up right now. We've got a publication coming on that very soon. So we're very excited about those two projects.
Yeah, have to wait for peer review and check them out once they're published.
I think we're through peer review, and now we're just to the stage of waiting on that publication, actually.
All right.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, good news coming.
Keep an eye on Google Scholar.
Absolutely.
So you've mentioned palatant a couple of times. That sounds, especially in the age of clean labels, when consumers really want to see ingredients they recognize. How can plasma help as a palatant or even replace or supplement synthetic ingredients?
As I mentioned, plasma is very palatable. We don't consider it a palatant, if you will. It is a very palatable ingredient. In many cases, can help manufacturers reduce the use of palatants. As we know, there's a huge number of palatants out there. And depending on what the company may be using, we could help them in formulations to where people have been able to reduce the amount of palatant that they're using. So it can help immensely in palatability. And as I said, dogs love it. Cats tear to the bags for it. It's a very palatable ingredient. And we do like to say that, remind folks that it's not a quote unquote palatant. I'm not suggesting that anybody run right out there and start using plasma and take their palatant out. It may or may not work.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's palatable, not necessarily a palatant.
Yeah, exactly. Very.
Gotcha. So moving on from formulation into actual production, there's found out that plasma is useful there too. So are there particular product types, dry, wet, semi-moist, or maybe like high meat, speaking of on-trend products, which plasma can provide a particularly strong processing advantage?
So the short answer there is all of them. But I think you want me to elaborate a little more. So let's go back. The first one you mentioned is wet. Plasma really first gained its notoriety, if you will, for use in wet pet foods. Plasma is considered the gold standard in binding, emulsification, water holding capabilities, and is very often used in wet diets for those product features. It's the top binder out there, and it doesn't really matter the form of wet. So pate or low style does a wonderful job with fat emulsification and water holding to hold that together in that shape or form. In something like chunks and gravy, it does a great job to hold the chunk together while it's in the gravy, so it doesn't dissipate in the package. And when the customer opens that pouch and pours it out, they actually see the chunks separating and separate from the gravy. And even in some of the newer forms that we're seeing today, the fresh category has just taken off like wildfire. The gently cooked, fresh, And with that growth in that sector, we've done quite a bit of processing research and that as well. Again, everything that I just mentioned holds true there. It helps hold water. And we've actually just worked with some different companies. There's a couple of products that are launching very soon on the commercial side with plasma in fresh diets to hold that water holding capacity. So that the idea is when the customer opens that fresh product, it comes out as crumbles and looks like meat and so forth. And typically the consumer doesn't want to see free water in that. So we can help them hold that together. When we talk about kibble, and you mentioned high meat, absolutely very big trend these days. It's probably more than just a trend nowadays in the pet world. And as we know, the more meat you add to a product, that also brings along with it more water. We've done a lot of work recently over the past couple of years at the Winger Lab, where we have made diets and really just taken the fresh meat up as high as we possibly could, because we wanted to add more fresh meat in it, usually get to a top out level, because the water that it brings in and just it doesn't extrude. You can't actually make a kibble, so forth, with the addition of fresh meat. When you add plasma, we found that we can continue to take those levels of meat up higher because of the water holding ability, helps it get through the extruder. We can make good kibbles with a much higher meat content when you use plasma. And then we also have found that the durability, because it is such a good water holding and binder, that the durability scores really increase with the use of plasma in these high meat diets. And that translates to, if you're a manufacturer, I have less fines. I have less fines with product hitting the floor. That's money to me if I have fines hitting the floor. And then even as a consumer, when a product is packaged, palletized, wrapped, put on a truck, shipped to a store, shelved, moved around, as a consumer, I still get less fines at the bottom of the bag when I take it home and open that bag. Also, less fines even in wet formulas, jumping back to wet. The less crumbs from those chunks and things like that. So that's very important in the consumer's eyes, right?
Right. So getting a little deeper into that binding aspect, that ability, can plasma actually reduce formulators' reliance on wheat gluten, gelatin, other binders like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So wheat gluten is a really commonly used binder, and we've got data that shows how much better plasma is. And then also you use less plasma to accomplish the same goals. You can use plasma depending on the formulation, and we would work with a company to see where it lands for their formula, but it's as much as a 1-to-4 replacement. 1 part plasma takes away 4 parts of wheat gluten. So even though wheat gluten tends to be a very inexpensive, cheap ingredient, you can still look at even cost savings using plasma when you're replacing that much wheat gluten versus plasma. And then we have research against other different binders. And as I said, the plasma has been considered for a while really the gold standard in binding and emulsification. And it's very common uses in wet pet foods in particular over the last 35 years.
Gotcha. Gold standard. And speaking of usage, let's shift away to usage in some of the other trends that it relates to. We got a pre-show question from the audience who, as a European producer, they've been using plasma for years, but they found that maybe they didn't have so much trust in the product with U.S. consumers, or maybe it wasn't as accepted. Do you feel that that's the case, and how can you build trust with U.S. consumers of plasma?
With U.S. consumers, that I mentioned earlier, we have that human side of our business, and we do feel that helps. Plasma is in the news for other things, and on the human side, and when that consumer knows that it's an ingredient that's used in their health items, they're much more trusting when it comes to, okay, I can translate this to my pet. Now, we also have a large base of usage in the US. So I don't feel that there's really a concern with using plasma in the US versus Europe. I think actually the US markets may be a little bit ahead of the game on plasma usage. We see a lot of plasma usage in the States now in dry kibble, soft chews, supplements. A lot of supplement companies use a lot of plasma. It is growing. And then us at APC, we're out there trying to make sure that the consumer and the manufacturer, one, knows who we are, and two, trusts our ingredient. We have a sales team that's out there calling on folks. We have a full marketing team that's dedicated to pet that does a great job of talking to the consumers and really doing more and more of that each year. As we know, this in the pet category is a very consumer driven category. So we do have to talk to those consumers and have their trust. But I think we're doing a lot to get that. And I don't think you'll see an issue with that in the US.
Gotcha. So speaking a little bit more about that, about the consumer trust and all that, the demand for clean label and transparency has really grown, and the demand for natural pet
Sure.
foods, things like that. Where does plasma fit into all that, into that demand for natural, clean label
It
ingredients?
fits in very well. So plasma is a natural ingredient. We offer natural statements that we meet AFCO's natural definitions, etc. And we've even had some companies that have clean label products feature plasma in the products as a clean label ingredient. Plasma also has a wonderful sustainability story to tell. And that's becoming more and more important as we know in consumers' eyes, and goes hand in hand with that natural kind of feel. And the sustainability story is quite detailed, and we certainly be happy to share that with anybody that would like to hear in detail about Plasma's sustainability journey and where it started and where we are now and where we're going.
Let's hear a little bit about it. I'd like to hear it. Something
Well,
really
basically,
fascinating about
the
that.
business model of our company over the past 40 years that our company's been in business is to take what was considered once a waste stream product, and we take it and make a functional value added product out of it. So we're taking the blood. Typically, blood was a very challenging product, and it was just gone off into the waste streams and into waterways, dumped anywhere, and landfills even. We've got a statistic out there that if all rendering waste went to the landfills today, we would be out of room in 3 years. It's very important what we're doing. Our company in particular, we have water reclamation products and internal guidelines that we go by. We have a lot of solar usage at our facilities. So not just the sustainability of one ingredient, but our whole company has been focused on the sustainability journey over the past 3 to 5 years, let's say.
Yeah, and it's one of the great things about the pet food industry is how many products like that there are, where they find things that would have been wasted, and instead you turn that plasma into something nutritious, palatable, just has all kinds of benefits. It's
Absolutely, yeah. You gotta think about that. Like I said, a product that was going to the waste stream somehow is now used for health benefits, a host of different benefits, processing benefits in pet food. So yeah, it's a great story.
waste not, want not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how about the future? What's coming up? What future innovations in plasma processing might further expand all these applications we've been talking about for pet?
We're continuing to work in the dry kibble space. We're doing some work in Europe with Buehler actually coming up later this year. We've got some more work that we're working on in the Winger Labs to further develop the use in dry and how far we can push those limits in high meat diets, for example. And then we're trying to take a look at what the market is demanding and what the trends are in the markets, and go and do some research and see how plasma can fit into these. As I said, we just finished up a couple of projects, real excited about the microbiome and mobility. We are looking at skin and coat as a project. We know in other species, we've had great results in skin and coat. We've got some great work in the horse world on that, but we want to translate that into the pet world. So we're looking at models for that in upcoming research, and really anywhere that we can go with plasma. We also feel that we've got a story that we could possibly tell with weight control. As another little peek under the covers, we're looking at doing some research work with plasma and the use of weight control in both dogs and cats. There's a lot of exciting things to come. As I said, we do so much work in other species as well, and everything is always translated from swine to equine and so on. There's no reason to think that these benefits won't translate to dogs and cats. So we're jumping in with the research to get specific in-species research for those.
Interesting. And coming from that One Health perspective.
Absolutely.
Good deal. All right. So we've covered all the questions we had. Let's take some from the audience and see what other topics are on the minds of pet food professionals. First one we've got here. What is the minimum maximum dosing to see palatability improvement in a feline high moisture 67 to 70% diet? And would this be the same for canines?
It's really hard for me to answer that question. It varies from diet to diet on what the specific inclusion should be. And yes, it does translate to canines as well as felines. We'd be happy to work with anybody on their specific projects. We do, as I said, we have a full team of folks in the pet space. And I mentioned sales and marketing. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our R&D and tech services people. We work with companies to find the ultimate inclusion rate for their project, whether it's for palatability, to see health benefits, the microbiome, what have you. We do site visits, work with people on their particular formulas. We have our own pet kitchens in our global headquarters in Ankeny, Iowa. We have a pet kitchen where we can do benchtop work and test different testing. And then in our European headquarters in Granollers, Spain, which is just outside of Barcelona, we also have a pet kitchen there as well, where we can do similar small benchtop and different testing. It's really hard to say. Just one answer to that question. And from one of my colleagues, Joy Campbell, who leads our global technical services in pet, we always joke with her because her standard response is, it depends. But it really does.
Yeah. Makes sense. So this is a kind of a bit more of a kind of large scale or large picture question. Do you know what is the volume of blood plasma produced in the US, and how much does the production of plasma diminish the amount of blood meal offered in the US?
Usually it's at a premium. We buy the blood to separate the fractions, and blood meal can be what's left over. Blood meal is just, as I mentioned earlier, a whole blood ingredient that contains everything. There's no separation of the fractions. So it's usually a lower quality, can be a lower quality product. It doesn't always, it's very variable. So it is substantially different what we do versus just blood meal versus plasma. And yes, that could affect the supply of blood meal. We are trying to get all the raw ingredient that we can. The more that we get, the less there is available for products like just blood meal.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked a lot about what what plasma can do. I have a question here about what are the limitations? Are there format limitations? Freeze dried, raw, air dried, gentle cooked, baked? Is there somewhere where you wouldn't want to use plasma?
We haven't found the limitations yet on pet food form. We do have some different products that we recommend in different cases. For things like raw, or really anything that doesn't have a kill step, we have a product that's been UV treated. So in our world, the plasma, the spray drying process itself is a kill step. We also have products that have redundant kill steps, which it's run through UV lights, which again is a redundant kill step to kill any microbes. So if anybody wanted to use plasma in their product that did not have a kill step, we would recommend that you use the UV product just to get that redundant kill step on the product. But as far as does it work? Yes. I mean, we're yet to find the limitations. Dehydrated we've got customers using it in dehydrated because it helps hold that shape and form. The inclusion levels can vary greatly from form to form, and that's where it would come in again that we would work with a specific manufacturer on their particular project, because it's hard to say that if you use 4% plasma, you're going to get this, and kibble versus dehydrated, it doesn't work that way. But yet to find the limits.
Gotcha. All right. So we have a question here about digestibility. It's asking if there's figures for digestibility, any research on that data, and how then does it compare to other animal protein sources?
So yes, we do have data behind the digestibility of our product. Glad to send that out to anybody that would like to see the specific research on that. And then compared to other proteins, again, we've got some data behind that, comparing plasma to other proteins on digestibility, and would love to just, again, make that available to anybody that would like to have it.
Gotcha. And then a little bit more about the differences between the palatability between bovine versus porcine plasma. Is one more favored than the other?
We don't really see any differences in bovine versus porcine on palatability, on binding, on really any of the things that we've talked about today. They can be used interchangeably. We've done some work like that just to see if does the binding is porcine better than bovine, et cetera. And there really is no differences. Typically, folks in North America use porcine in pet, and the only reason is really because it's easier to export to other countries. Typically, porcine ingredient product versus bovine throughout North America. So that's really the only reason that somebody would use one over the other. But as far as functionality, they both are the same.
Gotcha. A little bit different regulation, but functionality the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
And going back to those publications you mentioned earlier, what journals are those going to be in? Do you have the titles for them that people
I don't have them in front of me. Like I said, we've got, if they're talking about the new ones,
I believe so. Yeah, the ones.
yeah, we will be making those widely available as soon as they come out. Keep an eye out on LinkedIn. If you would like to get, we do email blasts and so forth. So if you would like to be a part of that, we can get you signed up on that, because we have regular R&D and different updates that do go out. As soon as I said, we're very excited about these two newest projects. We will be sending those out as much as we can. And hopefully you'll see us on the podium at several different events in 2026 talking about these. We actually had quite a few events that we were on the podium in 2025 with some of these topics as well. We will be out there spreading the word.
Gotcha. So once they're published, we'll find out. We'll know.
Absolutely.
All right. A nice technical question here. Would you recommend adding plasma at the beginning or the end of the process for a wet matrix or wet product?
Add it when you're making the emulsion, basically. So it's one of the ingredients that will go in when you make the emulsion.
Let's see. And there's a question about the percentage of fresh meat that can go into an extruded product. I should adapt that. Can plasma increase the percentage of fresh meat that can go into an extruded product?
Absolutely. That was some of the work that we did with Wenger, and it can increase the amount of fresh meat again, because water holding capacity that plasma has and the binding, it's able to account for that, the water in the additional fresh meat, which enables you to again add more fresh meat to your diet.
Gotcha. And looks like this is a question might be about one of your guys' products. What is the price premium for blood plasma? Oh, I see. No, I see. What is the price premium for blood plasma over blood meal, 80% pro? Since it's not just the pro percentage, I assume it would be a higher price.
Absolutely, yeah. Plasma is going to be a higher price. The price of blood meals tends to fluctuate much more because it's a commodity and the price of that changes really daily, but it is at a price premium to blood meal. Again, we take and separate the fractions and plasma and the red blood cells for specific reasons and different uses. And then we actually have some products to where we take and concentrate the plasma fraction even further to get a higher concentration of that plasma. A lot of people that manufacture treats and soft chews, they have a very small piece that they're trying to get as much in as they can. And so we're able to fractionate that down to make it even more concentrated so that they can use that at higher concentration levels based on what they're doing.
Gotcha. And so on to more trends and things like that in that clean label aspect. Are there naming options other than plasma for pet parents who may not want to see plasma on the label?
Absolutely, there are. So in the US, AAFCO rules, we can label plasma as plasma, animal plasma, porcine plasma, bovine plasma, you can call it the species. It can be labeled as meat byproducts. We have a product that we call Savorings, which is plasma that has been very lightly hydrolyzed. It still retains all of the benefits that we've discussed here today about that plasma has, but that product, since it has been hydrolyzed, can go on the label as natural flavor. So we do still have some people that raise the question, what about people that see plasma on the label? What if they get scared of that? They don't know what plasma is. I tend to push back a little bit on that. And in today's time, with some of the meat ingredients that we're using and some of the customers' different diets that are out there, there's some things on labels that I never thought there would be on labels. However, if we can accommodate anybody that wants to label it different from just plasma, absolutely.
Gotcha. If they'll eat insects, they'll eat blood.
Yes.
You mentioned sustainability. What is done with the remaining blood meal components after the fraction of plasma is removed?
It's usually sold off. It's a cheaper ingredient. It's sold, and we don't actually do anything with it. The blood that when we separate it, we separate out the two fractions, so there's nothing really left from what we do. But blood meal manufacturers, they take blood and make a different product. So we don't have a waste product of blood, if you will.
Mhm.
Additional blood to look for someplace to go.
Gotcha. So you don't need to worry about a waste stream because there isn't much of one.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. I'm receiving the research data. I'm sure, Claire, if you want to reach out to the folks at APC, they can hook you up with that data. What are the optimal parameters, pH and temperature, to add plasma into that wet matrix?
That one I'm going to defer to our technical team. And so if you have a specific question like that, let me drop in the chat. Let me get your information or so forth so that we can follow up with you.
Okay. And how about, we're talking about some of the claims and things like that. How can some of the research on digestibility, or excuse me, on some of the functional benefits, what kind of claims can be made on labels?
I typically tell folks that if I'm talking to a pet food manufacturer, that honestly, claims are between you and your legal department, and how much risk are you willing to take? Because there can be a lot of claims that are out there. We do have a list of soft claims that are NASC approved and help improve gut health, help improve joint health, cognitive health, and things. There are some that, but we tend to not get too deep into recommending certain claims because that's not what we do. That's up to the manufacturer. And I know it sounds like I might be joking, but I just typically ask them, what's their legal department like? That tends to be the final sign off.
Question for the lawyers.
But we can talk through that with folks and show them the research and give them the backup. And we've got the backup to prove some of these claims. And we've got, like I said, a list of different soft claims. So glad to help anybody with that.
I guess similarly, talking about human grade claims, I know you had mentioned that you make products that are involved in the human realm. Do you have products that could be used for human grade pet foods?
So we make a human grade plasma that's actually made in Europe. There's a lot of human diets that it goes into in Europe. Sausages is one of the main ones we think of, a blood sausage,
right?
That sort of thing. So we would have to bring it from Europe or bring it over. We don't have human grade facilities here in the US. So we would need to ship it from our facility and export it to a manufacturer's human grade, because if it goes into a non-human grade facility anywhere along the supply chain, then it ceases to be human grade. So there's a few little idiosyncrasies like that, but yes, we do have a product.
Gotcha. Ship it in from Europe. Okay, we have a question here about the partially hydrolyzed plasma product that you mentioned that can be labeled as natural flavors. If you could mention a little bit more about that, and it looks like you might have a person looking for some more info here.
Sure. So it's just the same plasma that is our base regular plasma is. Again, as I mentioned, it's just been gently hydrolyzed, and that is enough for it to be able to go on the label as a natural flavor. The hydrolysis is not significant enough if somebody wants to use it as in a hydrolyzed diet to make allergy claims and that sort of thing. If that is why they're asking the question, we have another product that is called Cravings that has been hydrolyzed to 85% below 10,000 Daltons, which would be more suitable for those type of diets if you're trying to make a hypoallergenic diet and want the health benefits of plasma. We've been talking to you about that particular product.
Gotcha. Okay, I think that was our last question from the audience. If anybody out there has any last questions, go ahead and send them in now. Otherwise, we'll start calling it a wrap. Was there anything else that you'd like to mention, Roger? Anything that we haven't covered that you're particularly excited about plasma that you just want everybody to know about?
I'm just excited about plasma. We kind of jokingly referred to internally as plasma as the Swiss Army knife of ingredients. So it can do many things. And when people, what about plasma? Can we help this? Can we help that? We always seem to have a blade that we can keep opening up and doing something with plasma. And you mentioned earlier, have we found any limits yet? And we really haven't. The only limits that we found is on certain products. Of course, inclusion levels are going to be lower in some, and so that sort of thing. But as to what products it'll work in, we really haven't found that limit or that barrier yet. We've even done a lot of research in gravy products and using plasma in the gravy to help increase the palatability of the gravy. The first thought was, if you use plasma in a liquid product, plasma binder and water holding capacity everybody knows about, it's just going to bind it all up. Well, not if you use it in the right matrix at the right levels. We actually got some nice research on showing improved palatability on gravy products. So I think that's one of the things that really excites us about the product is we haven't found those limits yet, and we keep doing different research and work with different customers, joint research with customers, and we continue to be excited about the results that we see. And as I mentioned, the two projects we just finished up, real excited about. You're going to hear a lot about that from us in 2026. And we're excited to be jumping into even more research for dogs and cats plasma. So where we'll go from here, we'll see.
No limits.
Yeah.
A couple more questions that come in here. Does plasma, the hydrolyzed plasma, still have the beneficial functions of the regular plasma?
So the one that is hydrolyzed below the 10,000 Dalton, 85% below 10,000 Daltons, when you get that much of a hydrolysis, you lose most of your binding functionality. So it's more about just health benefits at that point.
Mm-hmm. And can you all at APC perform palatability studies in your test kitchens?
So we don't do PAL studies at our kitchens. What we do is work with you. We could make small batches that we can then send out for PAL. We work with different companies to do PAL testing, and we're actually in the middle of some of that with some other customers right now. So we can do the work in the kitchens, and then we would send it out for PAL testing. And I'd also like to add too, you mentioned what you asked about what we're excited about. We're really excited about the capabilities that we have with our kitchens, and not only just doing some of the work that we've done there on our own, but we invite anybody to come and use the kitchens. We host folks at our facilities. We have a plant that is about an hour from our kitchen, so we can do plant tours. So we welcome people that want to come and see our facilities, do some work with us, and go see the plant and see how the magic's made.
See the magic.
Yes.
All right. So I think we've run through all of our questions and taken a nice look at the future of plasma and gotten some ideas of what might be on the horizon. So I'll say thank you, Roger, and thank you to our audience.
And thank you, Tim. Appreciate it today.
Yeah, we appreciate your time as well. So I'd like to give a big thanks to APC as well for sponsoring this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro. Please watch for more Ask the Pet Food Pro chats brought to you by Pet Food Industry and Pet Food Forum. I'm Tim Wall, Senior Reporter for Pet Food Industry, saying thanks again to APC and its Director of Global Pet Food Sales, Roger Gerlach. Also, a great big thanks to our Watt Global Media staff for making all this possible. Thank you to our international audience for joining us. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day or evening, depending on which side of the planet is your home. Until the next time on Ask the Pet Food Pro, goodbye.
Thanks all.